Bret Thorn, a lot of people know, is from Nation's Restaurant News, the food editor, food and beverage editor, senior food and beverage editor.
Sure,
so we've known each other for a long time. What's funny about Bret was actually at our first event that we did in Miami in 2003. So he's one of the few, that'll actually even be in San Antonio that were at that first event. It was the first year we started, and it was pretty small.
I think I was assistant food editor back then. I might have been associate.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, Pam was still there. Right. Yeah. And so then you can see that we've got Liz and Francisco Estrada. They're the owners of Naco Mexican Food Truck and the am I saying that right, or is it Naso?
Yes.
Naco. That's what I thought. Okay, and Naco 210, which is their bricks and mortars, and we'll definitely get into talking to them about where they've come from. James Bickmore Hutt, who's with us from Dole Packaged Foods, going to talk to us about some of the, especially summertime. I wanted him to come on and just talk about menus and use of fruit and what's happening there trend-wise. Dave Woolley from Buffalo Wild Wings, who's going to come and talk to us about what's happening. Not only, yes, love it. Not only that, but also been involved for many, many years within the association and what it means for us to have 20 years under our belt, which is pretty amazing. Calvin Neal is new to our board, so he's our non-commercial expert that's on the board. So he'll be talking to us too about his world and what's happening. Stan Dorsey's been around for, a few years in our association. Like how many, Stan?
19.
19 of the 20 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. So yeah, appreciate that. And then Alex Sadowski is with us as well. So Alex is going to be talking to us, about, he's been involved for a long time too, and actually one of our very passionate supporters that helps us actually in recruiting members and sponsors. And we appreciate your help on that. But Alex attends pretty much everything we do, like many of our members, and especially board members. So thanks for joining us today. So yeah, let's just, we'll get started. Elizabeth Johnson is going to join us now. So I'll introduce her as well, and we'll get into our talk. But just so you know that, Liz and Francisco and Elizabeth are going to be people that are speakers and part of our presentation. So hi, Elizabeth. A part of our presentation when we're in San Antonio. So wanted you to kind of get to meet them today before you get to really see them and kind of get a feel for what's happening within San Antonio. So a lot of the theme will be that. Bret's going to be there as a speaker talking about the entire country and what's happening a lot in the independent side and other, trends that are happening throughout. So we'll touch base on that a little bit today. And we have a few other people that will be joining us as well. So let's get started. If you don't mind, I'm going to start with some of the locals. So let's Liz and Francisco and Elizabeth. What do our members and sponsors that are coming to San Antonio? What are you most excited about them seeing?
You want to start, Elizabeth?
Sure. Well, I think that definitely talking about San Antonio being a city of gastronomy is a really cool segue to talk about future trends, because I think that our representation in the UNESCO network is really about looking towards the future and trying to tackle sustainability development goals through food and culture, which is gastronomy. And so I think that there's so many amazing things that we can talk about in terms of innovation, in terms of sustainability. And so I think that those are two things that often get overlooked when we start talking about this designation, because people automatically go to like food and flavor, and it's really not about specific foods and flavors. It's about using food and culture as a driver for sustainable economic development, and this city needs that a lot, because we deal with a lot of issues that at the end of the day really tie back to some very unsustainable practices that we have here in our community with regard to obesity and diabetes and food insecurity. So I think that we are at the forefront with a lot of amazing organizations, like the World Heritage Office, like our Metro Health Department, like our food bank, which is actually the largest food bank serving the largest population anywhere in the continental United States. And so those aren't super sexy topics, but I think that they're very relevant to the community that we're in. And I think it's spurring a lot of innovation. And I think that's really exciting.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because in our original research and our original trips coming there, time we spent with the CIA, which I know you were a big part of that in the beginning as well. It was kind of interesting because that's some of the recommendations that came to us, because the culinary road trip is such a short period of time. We only have, 4 or 5 stops that we can do. We didn't really take one of those in. We have done that a little bit in the past, but I was impressed. I mean, multiple people told us this is a big part of what your community is all about. Which is awesome.
Well, and I just also want to harken back to education. Education changes so much when we look at the San Antonio market in relationship to the Austin market. Austin and San Antonio, let's face it, they're different because UT is located in Austin. We have a lot of great universities here in San Antonio, but just having the CIA here for a decade has done an amazing amount to bring our culinary game up. And of course, we are a hospitality city. That's what we live, eat, and breathe. And so I think that, having that educational arm or engine of the CIA has been huge in our development, as well as, obviously the development of the Pearl, large infrastructure projects coupled with education, coupled with sustainability initiatives like the UNESCO City of Gastronomy. I think all of it kind of comes forward to create a snowball. And I think it's an exciting time to be here in San Antonio.
Yeah, I agree. And I hadn't run an event there in many years, and going back to see it, I was just shocked at the changes and how it's come along and how the diversity of cuisine in the city has totally changed. It was very focused, 10 years ago, probably even, but certainly 15 years ago in a couple of different areas. And now you're getting to see a little bit of everything. So it's really exciting. So Liz and Francisco, you want to chime in and talk a little bit about what do you think, people are going to be excited to see in your town?
Well, we're going to talk about the sexy stuff. I think the fusion of flavors, because the expansion of San Antonio and the growth of it, and so many people have come to live in the short period of time, has affected the influence of the food, of course. The fusions that you can find now, people that are actually going to be able to experience truly Mexican food, because for San Antonio, Mexican food is a big thing, but it was mainly Tex-Mex, and people were, that was the Mexican food throughout the country. And by now, having a lot of Hispanics and a lot of people from other countries bringing their true, because of the ability of finding ingredients now, it's way easier than it was 20 years ago. It's very fun. You will find a city that is very active, very local. San Antonio supports local people and people that come into San Antonio like us, that we were not part of here. In 5 years, we can tell you we're part of it. We're part of the community. They're going to be enjoying how welcoming San Antonio is, how big of a party it is, and that Mexican food is more than nachos, fajitas, and margaritas. There's way more in here now that you can find.
A lot of too much more is Mexican plates and all the flavors and all the culture. Mexico, every part of Mexico have a different kind of food.
And now you can find a little bit of everything in here, which is very interesting. And I think it's fun. It's fun. When people ask us, oh, you have a Mexican restaurant. Oh, you have margaritas and nachos. We don't sell either. None of those. Those are not part of our menu. And here we are. We have made it through.
Yellow cheese.
Yeah, no yellow cheese. It does not exist in Mexico. It's okay. We like it too, but it does not. So being part of that new generation that brings in your traditions as they are, because you're able to, it's so fun. And you can find that in many Asians, in Thai, like you were saying. Thai food is growing like crazy. There's dishes that we have never heard in our lives before, like 10 years ago, and now they're part of the Filipino culture. It's growing faster here, it's fun.
Well, our friend Simon Majumdar would love hearing that. He's been a promoter of Filipino cuisine, for many, many years, and excited about it growing, and it is finally growing. Yeah,
it is growing.
How long have you guys been in San Antonio?
6 years.
6? Yeah.
Yes, I'm from Mexico City. I moved here for 6 years ago.
Yeah.
So-
I actually came to school here for my first degree a couple of decades ago, and then moved to Mexico City. I got my second degree on that side, and then we moved back here. Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, let's switch gears a little bit, and I want to hear from a couple of our members, and I'm Brett. Then we'll come to you and to James. But Dave or Stan or Calvin, if you guys want to chime in, I mean, where's your head looking at San Antonio and coming to the city and coming to our 20th anniversary? What are you looking for? What do you want to see?
I'm personally super excited to go. I haven't been in about 4 years, and I've always thought of San Antonio to you guys' point about the whole Tex-Mex thing. And I think that there's like an elevated Tex-Mex thing that's happening there too. That's not everybody is privy to. But and also being so close to like the barbecue epicenter of Texas in Lockhart is kind of interesting too, and maybe how that plays into effect. But there's a reason why CIA went there many, many years ago. There's a reason why you're hearing about all this really great stuff that's coming out of San Antonio like more recently, and I'm really excited to like dig in and get to eat it.
Cool. Stan, Alex, or Calvin, you guys want to chime in?
Yeah, I agree with Dave. The what is trending up on as far as what our customers are looking for is Asian and Tex-Mex or Mexican food. It's amazing that a few years ago we put tacos on the menu. It was more than a few, and people thought we were nuts. We're not a Mexican restaurant. We should be an Irish restaurant, whatever. But now we just keep adding them, and they just keep selling. So I'm looking forward to seeing some new things and what's going on as far as that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been probably 15 years since I was in San Antonio last. So can't wait to see the changes. Check it out. Definitely read a lot of great things about it. Kind of reminds me of my home in Nashville. I mean, it has really changed in the last 15 years from a food scene. So looking forward to that. Being in non-commercial, global flavors are really starting to take hold in that segment. That's not necessarily been the case in the past. So it's going to be good to check some of that out as well. So.
Awesome. Yeah. What's interesting talking about this, Jose, Relat could not join us today. He's the taco editor, known as the taco guru for Texas Monthly, which I think is kind of interesting that's how focused it is. And he's interesting. He was just talking about it. He'll explain a lot more of the research and stuff that he's done, but the growth of tacos on menus across the board at all different, ethnic cultures. Asian restaurants, of course, right? American-based restaurants now feel like they have to have a taco on it.
Way back to the 80s.
Yeah.
There's a word it's called the tacoification.
What was that?
There's a word for that where you basically make a taco out of things that are not Mexican, or there was a NPR article about it years ago, and there was a name for it, the tacoification.
Love it.
Using the taco as a format of plating and not as a formal dish or a set dish. I think I love to see that, how creative it can be.
Well, tacos are considered sort of universal now. They're an approachable shape, and so people put all sorts of things in them.
It's the easy way to eat. In Mexico, you use for the plate, for the spoon, for everything. You use the tortilla for everything.
Yeah, it's interesting that, Jose, the reason he's not with us today is he's in Oaxaca. We just did an event there in April. And it was so, the authenticity of the food. And then we also did one in Mexico City a couple of years ago. But it's so exciting to go, dive into the culture and get into, even some of the, smaller towns surrounding to see, the local flavors and what's going on. So,
You can find amazing dishes out of a lady from the street
The
just
corner.
with a little corner, a little fire on the floor. Whatever she's putting out there, you should eat it. It's gonna be good.
Yes.
If she has a line, it's even better.
Yeah, it is amazing. We were just in Chicago, and RJ Harvey's not, who's not with us today. He's over in Asia as well. But he took me to a place, okay, in a very small, ethnic neighborhood in Chicago, and it's takeout only. And talk about street food, we actually had to we sat in front of a Catholic church, right? And it just had like some metals or some concrete stanchions that we put our food on and actually ate in the street. And it was one of the best carnitas I've ever had in my life. It was just it was so authentic. They had the whole hog there. And I mean, it was everything, the snout and the skin and everything was chopped into it. I mean, all the ingredients along with it. And it's kind of, it's fun to see that that is now coming to, which you guys are doing in San Antonio. It's now coming to, the United States with, the more authentic and not just what, Americans see as their version of.
And part of the sustainability of the dishes is using every part of the animal, like Mexicans do, and reusing, like we do a dish with hibiscus flowers. A lot of vegetarian. Mexico, it's like vegetarian. The menus in Mexico you can find in the regular streets are way more vegetarians that people are used to seeing. And the hibiscus flowers, we make a tea with rosemary, and then we saute and cook them into a chipotle sauce, and we make them into tostadas, the actual flowers. So reusing whatever you have and not just letting it go to waste. It's fun. It's fun. I mean, that's the way we were brought up. It's invaded in our culture. Grandma will just smack you if you were trying to dish those things.
You need to use everything, a part of the animal, the vegetables, the fruit, everything. That's a good way to the Mexican cuisine.
Yeah, you're not trying to be trendy. That's just the way you do it.
That's the way my grandma will come from the grave, and she always said, take advantage that I'm still here, because when I'm not here, I'll come back and I'll find you and pull your feet out of the bed.
That's awesome. Hey, Bret, let's go to you for a minute, because you're doing research everywhere. And so we're kind of on this, subject of tacos or, Mexican influence food. What are you seeing interesting out there, especially in the fine dining world, an independent world?
Well, it's interesting that, as I mentioned, tacos are now a shape that people feel comfortable with. So you put something in a taco and they feel like they can relate to it and they can eat it. So maybe you can try something a little bit more unusual. And that's something that's been going on, for example, here in New York for a while, like Alex Stupak, who doesn't have a Mexican food background, but he opened Empion and he studied it. And he used to complain that if you took a tortilla, a taco tortilla, a little one, and you put beautiful heritage bred hazelnut finished pork on it, people would still want to pay $4 for it. Even though if you pull the tortilla out, you could say that's $34. And people say, yeah, I like to spend $34 in pork. And I think that's changed a little bit, that people are a bit more respectful of the many heritages of Mexican cuisine, and are willing to fork out a little bit more cash for it, which is nice to see. But it's now an accessible vehicle. And I was reading somewhere that Mexican food among younger generations has now surpassed Chinese and Italian food as the favorite.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
I will
James,
say,
let's bring, go ahead.
the point that was just made. I think that I think that we've got two tensions. I think that one of the tensions that I see on a daily basis is people continuing to think that no matter what the ingredients are that are on the taco, that it should still be a certain price range. I think that we still have some issues with that, because I will get beat up for serving Wagyu beef with all house made from scratch ingredients on an heirloom corn tortilla and charging $9 for it, which I think is a steal. And people will, I have a pretty big segment of San Antonians that have an issue paying that much for a taco.
I'd give you $18 for that, just so you know.
I wish we were here.
Yeah.
And a lot of Asian chefs have similar complaints that they're like, you know what? To make the broth for ramen, for example, using the very high quality meat and the bones that I'm using and cooking it down, this bowl of ramen should be $40, but there's no way that they can charge that much for it.
We get that every week. I get a call saying, "Oh, I just want a catering of something super simple. I want tacos of brisket. My brisket is a shredded meat that we used to cook in my father's ranch, and it takes only 18 hours to cook. The pastor marinates only 12, and the chicken and green salsa, which we roast all the vegetables to caramelize them and do, because all of our kitchen is from scratch kitchen. So to make a green salsa, it only takes me 2 hours." And she's like, "I just want simple and cheap, the cheapest. Just I want this, and that in types." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're asking for only proteins in my heirloom corn tortillas that we import from Oaxaca, which is like, it's really not that cheap. We can't. We can't."
You know,
Yeah,
what's
but it
interesting?
is a thing.
What's interesting on the opposite side of that is we did an event many years ago with, we've worked with him many times since too, with Roy Choi. So Roy's decision early on with his food trucks, of course, now he's got the higher end restaurants and they're very expensive. But with a food truck, what he wanted to do is have it accessible, so his Korean tacos, he wanted them accessible to everybody and try to keep the price point between $2 and $3. We were on the other side of that saying, it's like, come on, dude. It's like, you can charge $5 for this. It's an awesome taco. But he stood by his ground, and then, of course, did the other thing. Then he opened his bricks and mortar and did some other restaurants and where he, made his money, but he wanted his food trucks to be. So you guys have a food truck and a bricks and mortar.
Yes.
Are the
Yeah.
price points different? I brought that up to ask you that question.
Yes, the
Yeah.
price points are different.
It's a little different.
Not that much, but it is different. The menus are similar. Just like the restaurant has most of the dishes that the food truck has, but the restaurant offers more things. But the price point is different. Even though we use all compostable and they're not cheap to send out all our dishes at the food truck, at the end, you order at the window, I give you a box and you take care of the rest. At the restaurant, we have to take it, bring it, take your plate, clean the plate. There's
More
a lot
people.
more involved in there but there is a different price point. We try to elevate it, doing some more like looking cuter on the plate, but at the end, our meats are the same.
It's the same meat.
Yeah,
but
our
it's
tortillas are the same.
Experiences that you're offering to a customer.
Yeah.
Bad. You should not feel bad about having to charge more for a dining experience that has different overhead,
Yeah.
That's
No, we
No,
we
it's all
know that when we make the decision.
It's all the experience. When you have a restaurant, it's a different experience than the food truck. The food truck is always fast. It's informal. It's the people know. But right now in San Antonio, the food truck have another kind of experience, and the people go to San Antonio people really like go to the food truck and enjoy the food, the street food.
And the community that was created over at the corner, I can see it replicated already in many corners in San Antonio, which is very interesting. In the last 5 years, how food trucks have partnered in and make like a connection, like you sell coffee, I sell tacos, and you sell ramen, and we're going to be a successful corner because if somebody wants one of each, you'll have more people like flowing in. So it's like food courts, like all around the city created with food trucks, which is fun.
Awesome. Hey, James, I want to bring you into the conversation. We'll segue from tacos, but you don't have to stay there. What's going on in the taco world with various fruits, and what do you see there that's really been successful?
I think we're seeing an interesting kind of like polarization and kind of education around this idea of how you kind of declare a taco on a menu. And so, where a lot of people are trying to be really kind of conscious around eating styles and stuff like that. And people are trying to make, the next plant-based or plant-forward taco or vegetarian taco or pescatarian taco, right? and they're alienating a very large subset of the consumer because, you know, there's not people out there that want to have a plant-based taco because they see it, for better or for worse, they see it less than the one that has the premium animal-based protein on it, even though in some instances, in a lot of instances, they are putting a huge amount of effort into how they cook and treat those other produce-based items to put on there. So a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in terms of kind of like utilizing fruit and utilizing kind of other premium ingredients is just making a really delicious fucking taco, right? Rather than calling it a plant-based taco, rather than calling it, you know, a specific diet-based taco. It's just a good taco. So, and we're seeing a couple of brands here in LA specifically, which is where I'm based. It's, you know, they're serving the same concept in different demographic locations around town and using the socioeconomic background of that location to offset different price points in each location, but providing the same taco. So, you know, we've got places, you know, that are doing the exact same food in Santa Monica and then Watts, California, right? So two very different kind of socioeconomic backgrounds. They're charging like $12 for the plate in Santa Monica, and it's $4.50 in Watts. And so it's allowing each kind of location to get the same access to great quality food. But then obviously the people in Santa Monica are helping out to, you know, pay a couple extra bucks to the people in Watts to afford the same thing. So we're seeing, you know, really just really good tacos that are using kind of really great kind of like plays on escabeche and, you know, fantastic pickles and sharp kind of flavors that are coming through. I think that's really fun and exciting. And I think people kind of just trying to own a little bit more cultural identity between, you know, what they're actually putting on there. So, you know, to kind of the Estrada couple there, you know, the idea of just kind of really owning what, you know, the kind of regional identity of what those tacos are, and then sticking to it and saying, look, this is authentic to where we're from, and then not allowing kind of the Americanized palate to work it back to the same that you find on a lot of other menus. We're seeing a lot more unique kind of representation of that. And, you know, nicely enough, or fortunately enough for specifically the taco element, you got a lot of really great application of fruit from Mexican cuisine. So, yeah, I was only down in Mexico last week, and I had some of the best tacos of my life. And it was not from anything fancy. It was from, wasn't from the hotel, right? You know,
No, never.
was walking out and feeling slightly uneasy and dirty about where you sat your butt down on the seat. And then, you know, enjoying some really, really good tacos. So
I see over your shoulder the jackfruit too. Had a lot of success in that with tacos.
Yeah, man. You know, I think, you know, it's interesting. I actually got sent even last night a picture from one of my sales guys out in the middle of the country in St. Louis, Missouri. He took a picture of his Mexican restaurant's kind of menu, and they had jackfruit tacos on their menu, or jackfruit enchilada bowl on their menu. And I thought that was pretty cool. We don't sell the jackfruit to them, right? That was just kind of like a kind of an interesting kind of occurrence. But yeah, I mean, jackfruit's kind of having this nice little moment where people are starting to see it as, you know, a single ingredient rather than kind of like some, you know, hybridized kind of blended of, you know, extracts and isolates from various other products. So no, it's doing really well. It holds up just as well as anything else. And, you know, it can take all those amazing moles and salsas and sauces that you spend all
Al
that.
pastor. It tastes
Yeah,
amazing.
my
Al
gosh,
pastor.
killer.
We've done
Killer.
it. So good.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
yeah, we're having good fun with it.
That's cool. Well, shifting gears a little, Shauna's just joined us. Hi, good to see you. Thanks for being with us. Throw something at you and to Alex, because we haven't heard, you know, from you two yet. But again, going to San Antonio, I mean, what are you looking for? I mean, is it, you know, are you looking for more of the networking? What are you looking for from a food standpoint? What's the last time you were there? And, you know, and what do you hope to achieve during our 20th anniversary ICCA summit?
Alex, I'll let you go first.
Thank you.
I'm just excited to have everybody in my backyard because I go to San Antonio all the time, right? It's just a drive for me down from Texas. So I'm a transplant, right? For this whole thing. Ran a couple different concepts down in San Antonio. So I've spent a lot of time in all the little neighborhoods, which is what I really love about San Antonio because it still has those real cool neighborhood divides. And people don't necessarily leave their neighborhood unless it's to go out of San Antonio, right? You're like, hey, we're going to go to the Rim. If you're on the south side of San Antonio, you do not go up north like that. Like, no, we stay down here. Super cool. They have their own restaurants there. They go to the grocery store there. They go to the markets there. And being introduced to what I believe to be the originator of Tex-Mex is San Antonio is super interesting, right? Because it's kind of, you can see back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s where those hybridizations happened, and now where's that taken us 70 years plus later? Not a bad thing that we're going to kind of that real heritage, but I think there's still something there, and the nostalgia of that old school like fried puffy taco with shredded cheddar cheese on top, which we'll see when we're there, is really interesting.
What can go wrong? What can go wrong with a fried tortilla and some cheese? Like
I love
nothing. It's
the
delicious.
puffy tacos. I like,
Right?
I really
Like,
like.
And when you see the original, you're like, man, I could see why this has been around for 70 years.
Yes, this is good. It's a good food. It's a really good food.
Yeah, I just discovered stuff like that in Brownsville also, which part of the Rio Grande Valley.
Yeah.
But they also have a thing there. I don't know if you have it in San Antonio. They call it a Mexican martini, which is a margarita with olives in it.
We're gonna have to try some, Bret, because it's my favorite.
Oh, it is not mine, but maybe my palate has
Oh
evolved,
man,
and I can
we
try.
might have to make some at the hotel. How about that, Kevin? Need a little bar cart.
Sure, why not? Actually, we maybe bring it into the general session.
Done. Twist my arm.
So, Shauna, what do you think about what you're going to see when you're there?
Oh my goodness. I have to say, first and foremost, I am so excited about the 20th anniversary of ICCA. It's so hard for any business, and especially nonprofits, educationals, etc., to even get started, much less continue to be thriving after 20 years. So just to be able to be together with our guest that will be in with us, our sponsors, and then all of our members as well, that is just like off the charts for me. And then I think also just coming to San Antonio, there was at one point in time where I worked in San Antonio a lot. And no matter which neighborhood I went to, I was always able to find excellent food. And most of the time it was at your not a chain location. It was at your mom and pop. It was the things I had incredible pizza where the chef bought the starter over from Italy, snuck it in, for their dough. I had just an amazing outside of San Antonio, some amazing grilled chicken. I'm not fluent in Spanish, and I'm so sorry that I don't know that to know what it was called. Had incredible tacos. I've just had so many just fantastic culinary experiences that I'm looking forward to say, okay, I haven't been here in 5 years. Where has it changed? Where is it today? What might the future be, not only for the city, but even what menu ideas can we glean from there? And of course, always just the camaraderie with the great people. Oh, that looks so good. That looks so good. And then just on a random, one of the things I always love about San Antonio is there's a lot of pickup trucks. I seem to always be in the market for a truck. And then spring this summer in Georgia has been really cool. So to actually experience heat would be a norm for me. So I'm probably one of the few that's looking forward to sweating a little bit as we go around. Not the answer you wanted, but kind of the reality of where it is.
Awesome. Quinn just joined us. Quinn, you want to chime in here?
Yeah, so hi everybody, Quinn Adkins, Director of Menu Development, Culver Franchising. I have not been to San Antonio since I was a young man. Most of my mom's side of the family is from Texas, and we did hit San Antonio a number of times growing up, but just have not really had the opportunity to get back down there. So I'm super excited to kind of refresh my memory, and I have many great tour guides and ambassadors that will ensure that we are well fed and well lubricated. But to Alex's point, kind of the crucible, right? The birthplace of such a impactful and influential cuisine on all of our brands. And even for a brand like Culver's, which is about as mainstream Midwest as you can get, you know, when we do kind of dabble in the ethnic cuisine arena, the Tex-Mex and the Southwest flavors are familiar enough that our core consumer doesn't feel intimidated. They're familiar with the flavors, they're familiar with the ingredients, and we can then take that familiarity, source the very best products that we can find, and then create something extraordinary. Not saying authentic by any stretch of the imagination, but we make it as authentic as we can and ensure that the flavors are presenting the way that they should.
Well, authenticity is such a difficult word anyway. I mean, maybe it is authentic Mexican food to the upper Midwest.
No, I won't put that much sugar in anything.
You know, that's an interesting question, maybe to throw out and maybe do a little shift here. Let's just talk about, you know, here we are, we're almost halfway through the year, which is hard to believe. And it's kind of a challenging year from an economy standpoint. So what do you guys see out there as far as, you know, are people starting to like tighten their belt a little bit and maybe not spend as much money, or, attendance at the restaurants, do you have to really work harder to keep, to keep the level that you want to keep or have a little bit of growth? I don't like talking about negatives, as you all know, but it'd be kind of interesting just to hear, what are you doing to really look at where we stand within this economy and your goals that you have for the year?
Well, we have, I think that definitely there has been a belt tightening going on, at least with our customers, and on the Beef O'Brady's side. We did a promotion. We're still doing it. It was 10 for 10. It was 10 meals that are all priced $10 for $10. And it has made our year so far. We are having the best year we've ever had, on top of the best year we've ever had. And it's that promotion that's driving it. So I think there is still people are looking for value. I think people are worried about what's going to happen in the economy, and saving a few dollars along the way, I think makes people feel better about eating out and what they're doing.
I think this has been the longest run up to a recession without there ever actually being a recession declared. Like everyone's like, a recession's coming, but it's not here yet. And that's been going on for what, a year now? Longer? It's interesting.
Hey, follow-up question to you, Bret, on that. I know you do a lot more in the fine dining world. It used to be one, and we still obviously interface with them when we go do our events in cities. But I'm probably not in that scene, certainly anywhere near as much as you. What are you seeing there? I mean, are these fine dining chefs, I know a lot of them are opening more casual restaurants. Some of them are getting out of the fine dining side, but what's your overall view of that?
Well, try getting into a fine dining restaurant in New York City. You can't do it. Like, they're full. And, the riches continue to be rich. And obviously the lower income and middle class people are either trading down or cutting back. I also cover some public companies, and one of them is Noodles and Company. 45% of Noodles and Company customers earn $100,000 a year or more. in their households. And so those customers are doing fine. And for the lower income customers, they've, as Stan indicated, they've been offering deals and doing really well. They have a 7 for $7 deal. But yeah, it's becoming harder to run a fine dining restaurant because the labor pool is very much reduced. There aren't as many people who want to work that hard in restaurants, and everything costs more. So unless you have a really good alcohol program or you are part of a deep pockets company, it's becoming more and more difficult. So a lot of them are either branching out and doing what Danny Meyer did and launching Shake Shack, which he did, 15 years ago? Or a lot of the chefs who used to be, they're still big name chefs, but they were like in Food and Wine as best new chefs and stuff. They work for like Google and Facebook now, and they work in a lot of corporate dining. Or, some of the higher end chefs here in New York have moved to the suburbs, and just because they want a calmer lifestyle and less hectic. But I think to be a freestanding single unit fine dining restaurant is becoming impossible. You need to be more multifaceted than that. And a lot of those smaller fine dining restaurants are branching out. They started selling groceries during lockdown and figured out how to do off-premises stuff, whether that's catering or just regular takeout, third-party delivery, or shipping their stuff on Goldbelly, or, manufacturing their sauces and selling them in retail. Momofuku has a whole agenda of having more retail. And there are other groups that are like that too. They're just finding different ways to make money.
Yeah, it's interesting. I totally agree with everything you're saying. And I think the other thing that I've seen out there too is there's been a migration, which is kind of cool for a lot of smaller markets, I think, in the United States, of chefs from the Bostons or New Yorks or DC going to a Pittsburgh or Cleveland or, St. Louis or whatever. But I think that's kind of interesting. It's starting to see this talent pool being able to really, kind of like take other markets and raise the level of cuisine.
Yeah, now every city has an interesting dining scene, every single one. And that was not the case 20 years ago. And it is, as you said, a lot of chefs are going home, and after having moved to the big cities, and they can really have wonderful, successful careers in cities that really appreciate them.
So
I also
cool.
think that the flair of the ultra fine dining is kind of somewhat counter a trend at the moment, right? People are looking for like the street food experience and less of the white tablecloth. So we're seeing more people that are looking for like the truly authentic and a little bit more, kind of like family style or hands-on, which is very, very much not the fine dining New York experience, right? Where it was white linen tablecloths, 6 waiters, everybody dropping the cloche at the same time. That's not really what, for lack of a better phrase, what TikTok is pushing to the consumer at the moment, right? What TikTok is pushing or what Instagram are popularizing is street food, where you're walking up to a vendor who's serving you a drink in a Ziploc bag with a straw hanging out of it, right? So it's like the fine dining experience, while it has its place still in corporate America and maybe special occasion, like the day-to-day consumer who are still thinking about the justifiable penny on every bite eaten are going towards the more authentic, travel, enviable experience.
Well, and yet fine dining restaurants, except for the super high end, also are adjusting. So, they have expanded bar menus. If you want to buy a slider, you never used to be able to get deviled eggs in any restaurants. Now, any restaurant you go to, you can buy some deviled eggs. They might be $14, but you can buy deviled eggs. And there's also, and this happens with any down economy, there's an uptick in luxury products. There's caviar over the place, truffles, Wagyu beef is surging in sales. And I think part of that is the high-end consumer canceling their trip to Italy, but taking a 3-hour vacation at a fine dining restaurant. And as I said, this happened in 2008. It happened in 2001, when people splurge a little bit instead of splurging a lot.
Yeah, I think that point is really well taken by me as well. I think the casualization of America and dress codes too. That's where those, in my opinion, some of the bar menu things is to make you feel more comfortable coming to what is a white tablecloth restaurant, but not feeling like you're underdressed.
Yeah, at our menu masters party this year, someone complained that everybody was underdressed. And it definitely was more casual than it has been in years past. But that's just the way we're going.
Well, I'm personally happy about that. I don't have to wear a tie at least anymore. I still wore a jacket, but
Alex and I were not underdressed.
no, you weren't. Quinn was stylish, without a doubt.
I wore a tie.
So I'm going to, switch a little bit here. Let's go over to beverage a little bit. James, I'll start with you because I know you do a lot in that world. Let's just talk about what's happening trend-wise with beverages. Mocktails have been, talked about and, for years and years and years. I seem to see a lot more of it. I don't know if it's successful on the menus or not, but you're certainly seeing it a lot more. But not just that, but cocktails as well. So James, you want to start and then everybody else can chime in as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think mocktails have certainly kind of like got their foot in the door, if not kind of really opened the door pretty wide, in that you now see a lot of companies, diving headfirst into the, no ABV, spirit brands and kind of representations, whether it's, no non-alcoholic gin or even Guinness beer released a 0 proof, Guinness beer. So I think it's, that idea that people are really leaning into still trying to provide that same sensory experience and same cocktail, experience from a flavor profile, while giving you none of the celebratory buzz or regretful hangover the next day, I think is, a lot of the fun. So we're doing a ton of work around, savory cocktails have been really everywhere at this point. People really leaning into way more savory flavor profiles in their kind of builds of the cocktail. I mean, I think it really originated right with the dirty martini. So, I think kind of that kind of godfather of the savory cocktail has really kind of now found its place again. I think it goes without saying that we're now seeing, stuff like the espresso martini every single where around the entire damn country, and people taking very liberal interpretations of what they're going to do to their espresso martini to make it unique. On the savory kind of note, there are people throwing, grated Parmesan cheese into their espresso martini. So that idea of chewing through a cocktail is not really appealing to me, but it's obviously building some consumer following. Ombre drinks, right? The layered cocktails are kind of coming back with different kind of color flavors and development. That kind of sensory experience is pretty big, where we're seeing now funky, teas, the butterfly pea powder, like the blues and the purples and the different hues are kind of coming through in cocktails. I think mocktail is still pretty king, right? Like taking classics and giving them in mules. Is that what you said, Alex?
No, I was going to say, do you think?
Yeah,
I think it's separate, right? The no alcohol mocktails, and then the general people too that are moving more towards the no or low, because they're drink agnostic, right? They might have a glass of wine, and then they want a, maybe it's a sherry-based Negroni sort of play, or right, or a sherry cobbler, or all of these kind of more European ways to drink, because to your point, they want to be a little bit healthier, and they also want to wake up in the morning and not have a headache.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, the upside of mocktails, or spirit-free cocktails, as I like to call them, so less judgy, is that you can still charge people for them, because you're selling the experience. And I don't think you can charge quite as much as a high proof cocktail, but there's a restaurant near here in Manhattan, 53, that charges $16 for its spirit-free cocktails, and they're delicious. And their regular cocktails are $24 because Midtown Manhattan. But it means that just because someone isn't drinking doesn't mean to sound cynical, that you can't profit off of them. You can still
100%.
charge. So,
Hey,
We are-
Elizabeth and Liz and Francisco, if you could chime in on this too. What's happening in San Antonio? Are you seeing more of the, low alcohol, beverages or mocktails?
I think it's a growing path. The menus have a new section on their actual
For the
pages for the mocktails itself.
Yes.
We as a company, we don't have any alcohol so far. The food truck, of course, but the restaurant is in a recovery center area. So people that go for us only go for food. So the mocktail and the crafted aguas frescas and the things like that will be our margin, as you said. I mean, they can still have, other than iced tea, something delicious that is not alcoholic. It's growing.
In your restaurant, I know we talked a little bit about this, but it'd be interesting to explain to everybody. So you can't, it's not like somebody can bring in even a bottle of wine or a cooler, like some places in Texas allow that. Yours is no alcohol, period.
It's a no alcohol period. When we were invited, Francisco and I couldn't stay for 15 days because everybody loves margaritas with some tacos.
Margaritas and cervezas.
That's the thing.
It's a good match. It's a really good match.
Or beers. But when we decided to go, we have young kids, that was a good path for us. So they could be with us. I mean, at the end, it's only the four of us here in San Antonio, and it was a good way of making it and ensuring that we have those mocktails and those fun drinks for caterings, because we do a lot of like small bridal showers or baby showers and things like that. It's important. It's definitely part of the catering menu, and it's part of the regular specials. Like we create crafted whatever fruit we have in the season, we make it into a syrup, and then we make it into a coffee or agua fresco or an alcohol beer, michelada with a base of cherry right now, and things like that. So it's fun.
And people take pictures of that stuff, and like, I think more than food, people post pictures of drinks and identify with their drinks, and
Yes,
that's a huge factor.
the camera eats first.
And drinks.
And drinks. Drinks first. Yeah.
Elizabeth, in your world, what's going on with regard to that?
Well, I'm a more health centric establishment, so people drink a lot of zero proof. We call it zero proof. So we have an entire section on our menu dedicated to zero proof cocktails, and so we use everything from freshly made juices to adaptogenic tinctures that we make without alcohol. We make them with glycerin. So most tinctures are actually made with alcohol, but we make ours with glycerin so that they can go both ways, so that somebody who doesn't want alcohol can have it, and then somebody who wants alcohol, they can still have it. Glycerin is a great vehicle for for that adaptogenic ingredient. So whether it's ashwagandha or whether it's lion's mane, I have an herbalist on staff who's one of my bartenders, and so we have a lot of fun with all of those things. We also feature heritage foods. So we forage our own mesquite beans here in San Antonio, and then we roast them, and then we make syrups. And then thankfully I have some really loyal customers who have ranches. And so agarita berries, which are also one of our heritage foods, are in season right now. Very short season. This would have been a food that our indigenous ancestors would have eaten a lot when they were in abundance. And so they're a barberry. So if you're familiar with barberries from the Middle East, we have a version of that here in Texas called an agarita berry. And so we actually have cocktails on the menu right now with agarita berries. It's really fun.
How about kombucha? Are people into the kombucha?
Oh yeah, we have it on tap. We have kombucha on tap, and then we always have a tepache as well, because we use pineapple on our menu, and so the pineapple rind always gets turned into tepache, and then we make our own turmeric ginger beer in house, which is also lacto fermented with a ginger bug. So it's I went to culinary school in Mexico, so I was taught to never throw anything away. So
There you go.
nothing gets thrown away. So we cook so that we can so that we can swap stories because yeah, not the peels, not the pulp, nothing. Everything gets used like a second or third life here in our restaurant.
Same thing here.
It's the same.
That's interesting. And Elizabeth, you're going to talk more about this, of course, at our event. But your apothecary kitchen concept, Pharm Table. You want to just give just a brief, I don't want to blow it here. I want to let them come so they can hear the whole story, but give us just a brief description of what you're doing.
Well, my team and I are trying to really, we're trying to heal people and the planet with the way that we cook and the way that we eat, and changing the way we eat and think about food. It's really just changing, changing the way we look at food and changing the way we cook food. And it is really exciting. It's plant forward. We don't exclude animal proteins, but they're not the protagonist. Say 95% of the menu is plant-based, about 5% very high quality, sustainably raised and fed protein, animal proteins. And we use a lot of spices and herbs. I say that we're locally sourced, but globally inspired. There is a very strong focus of Mexican ingredients on our menu, but we change ingredients seasonally. Again, just trying to figure out how we can utilize a product, in its entirety. So when we create any dish on the menu, there's going to be some sort of byproduct that is produced. And then we create recipes with that byproduct to kind of try to push ourselves to not throw anything away. So we anaerobically compost everything. We just try to be as sustainable as we can. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, we're almost at the hour limit. Any closing thoughts from anybody?
It'll be a super fun conference. I'm looking forward to it.
Welcome
we
to
look forward to it too. And I really appreciate all you taking time today to be with us, and also all of our members and sponsors that have been with us for the past hour as well. But thank you. Look forward to seeing almost all of you or most of you here in a couple of weeks.